Some wounds don't bleed. They just sit quietly inside you, growing deeper with time. I didn't realize how deep mine were until the day my own parents looked at me and said, "You were never really our daughter anyway." But to understand how we got there, you need to understand my childhood. Because rejection doesn't start in adulthood. It starts small, quiet, invisible. A house where love had conditions. I grew up in a house where love was measured. Measured by obedience, by silence, by how useful you were. My parents had 2 children. My brother, Amir, and me. On paper, we were equal. In reality, I was always extra. Extra noise. Extra responsibility. Extra disappointment. Amir could spill milk on the floor, and my mother would laugh. If I dropped a glass, she'd sigh like I ruined her entire life. "Why can't you be careful like your brother?" she'd say. I learned very early that love wasn't automatic. It had to be earned. The sentence that followed me everywhere. Whenever relatives came over, my mother would smile and say, "She's very independent. Too independent sometimes." It sounded like praise, but it wasn't. It was code for, "Don't expect us to protect her." When I cried, my father would say, "Stop being dramatic." When I succeeded, he'd say, "That's what you're supposed to do."
No hacks. No pride.
Just expectations. I became invisible to survive. By the time I was 12, I stopped asking for things. I stopped complaining.
Stopped crying.
Stopped hoping. I learned how to disappear in plain sight. I helped my mother cook, clean the house, took care of my brother. People would say, "What a good daughter." But no one asked how tired I was. The first time I realized I was different. I was 16 when I overheard a conversation that changed everything. My parents were in the living room. They thought I was asleep. My aunt laughed and said, "She's nothing like you." And my mother replied, "She takes after them." I froze.
Them?
Later that night, I asked my mother what she meant. She stared at me for a long moment, then said, "You ask too many questions." That was the first time I felt something cold crawl into my chest. A feeling that whispered, "You don't belong here." Love that was always conditional. When I graduated high school, there was no celebration. My brother's small achievements got parties. Mine got silence. Still, I tried harder. College, part-time jobs, scholarships. I told myself, if I succeed enough, they'll love me. That lie carried me for years. The day I left home, I moved out at 22. Not because I wanted freedom, but because staying felt like slowly drowning. My parents didn't cry, didn't hug me. My mother said, "Don't forget where you come from." My father said, "Don't embarrass us." That was it. The irony no one saw coming. Here's the part no one talks about. Even after I left, I never stopped caring. When my father lost his job, I sent money. When my mother needed medicine, I paid.
Quietly.
No thanks.
No recognition.
They never asked where the money came from. They just took it. And I let them. Because deep down, I still wanted to belong. There's a special kind of pain that comes from realizing your parents don't hate you. They just don't choose you. Adulthood didn't change my role. It deepened it. People think once you grow up, childhood wounds magically disappear. They don't. They mature. They learn new ways to hurt you. When I became an adult, my parents didn't suddenly respect me. And that's worse. Adulthood didn't change my role. It deepened it. People think once you grow up, childhood wounds magically disappear. They don't. They mature. They learn new ways to hurt you. When I became an adult, my parents didn't suddenly respect me. They simply found new ways to benefit from me. I wasn't their daughter. I was their backup plan. The phone calls that only came with needs. My phone never rang just to ask, "How are you? Are you eating properly? Are you okay?"
No.
It rang when the electricity bill was overdue. The landlord was threatening eviction. My father needed temporary help. My mother needed medicine again. The calls were always short, always transactional, and always ended with, "You know, family helps family." I wanted to scream, but instead, I sent the money. Every time. I paid, and they pretended it was nothing. They never said thank you. Not once. They acted as if the money appeared out of thin air. As if I wasn't working double shifts. As if I wasn't skipping meals. As if I wasn't breaking myself quietly to keep them comfortable. And the worst part? They told people they were struggling alone. The humiliation I wasn't supposed to hear. One afternoon, I visited unannounced. I stood outside the door and heard my mother talking to a neighbor. She laughed and said, "My son takes care of us. He's a good boy." I felt my stomach drop. My brother. The same brother who hadn't sent a single rupee. Who barely called. Who showed up only on holidays empty-handed. I walked inside. My mother froze when she saw me. The neighbor smiled awkwardly and left. I said nothing, because I already knew the truth. I was their secret aim. I existed in shadows. Useful, but invisible. Necessary, but never acknowledged. They were comfortable letting me pay, but uncomfortable letting the world know I mattered. Family gatherings were a test of silence. At weddings. At funerals. At celebrations. I was always introduced as, "This is her." Not daughter. Not proudly. Just her. My brother got praise. I got reminders. "You're too sensitive. You misunderstand everything. Why do you always make things awkward?" So I learned to smile. To swallow words. To sit quietly while my existence was minimized. The day they said it out loud. It happened during an argument. The kind that's been building for years. My father had asked for money again. I hesitated. Just for a second. And that second changed everything. My mother snapped. "Why are you acting like we owe you something?" I said softly. "I've helped every time." My father laughed. Actually laughed. And said, "You're not even our real daughter. Don't act entitled." Silence filled the room. That sentence didn't echo. It cut. Not real. Just like that. Not shouted. Not emotional. Just stated. As fact. As if it explained everything. Why I was treated differently. Why I was never chosen. Why my sacrifices didn't count. I felt something inside me finally crack. Not anger. Not sadness.
Clarity.
I asked the question I was afraid of. I whispered, "Then why do you take my money?" My mother replied without hesitation, "Because you owe us. We raised you." That was the moment. The moment something old died. I stopped trying to be loved. I left without another word. And for the first time in my life, I didn't cry. I felt calm. Dangerously calm. Distance changed everything. I stopped answering calls immediately. Stopped sending money automatically. I didn't announce it. I didn't threaten. I simply paused. And that pause revealed their true feelings. Their tone changed fast. The calls became frequent. The messages longer. The guilt heavier. "Have you forgotten us? After everything we did for you? You've changed."
Yes.
I had. They never apologized. Not once. They didn't take back the words. They didn't explain. They just wanted things to go back to normal. Where I gave. And they took. The family turned against me. Soon, relatives started calling. Telling me I was ungrateful. That parents are parents. That blood matters. I asked one simple question. "Do you know who pays their bills?" Silence. They didn't. The irony that made me smile. They defended my parents fiercely, while unknowingly benefiting from my sacrifice. And that's when I realized no one knew the truth. And my parents wanted it that way. The secret they never thought I'd tell. For years, I stayed quiet. Protected their image. Preserved their dignity. Even when they destroyed mine. But silence has a breaking point. And mine was coming. The final straw. The message came late at night. From my father.
Short. Cold.
"We need money. Urgently."
No greeting. No explanation.
Just expectation. I stared at the screen. And finally typed back.
No.
There's a moment right before the truth comes out. When the room feels heavier than air. That's where we were. Everyone watching me, waiting for me to apologize, waiting for me to back down. They had no idea. This wasn't a defense. It was a reckoning. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the receipts. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. Not dramatically. Not angrily.
Calmly.
Because, when you're finally telling the truth, you don't need to shout. I said, I didn't want to do this. But since my loyalty is being questioned, let's talk facts. My father frowned. My mother whispered my name like a warning. I ignored it. 5 years. One question. I turned to the room. For 5 years, someone has paid the electricity, gas, rent, and medical bills in this house. I paused. Can anyone tell me who that was? Silence. Not a single person answered. When I said, "It was me," the room broke. It was me, I said. Simple.
Clear.
Final. They never apologized. Not once. They didn't take back the words. They didn't explain. They just wanted things to go back to normal. Where I gave. And they took. The family turned against me. Soon, relatives started calling, telling me I was ungrateful. That parents are parents. That blood matters. I asked one simple question. Do you know who pays their bills? Silence. They didn't. The irony that made me smile. They defended my parents fiercely, while unknowingly benefiting from my sacrifice. And that's when I realized no one knew the truth. And my parents wanted it that way. The secret they never thought I'd tell.
For years, I stayed quiet.
Protected their image. Preserved their dignity. Even when they destroyed mine. But silence has a breaking point. And mine was coming. The final straw. The message came late at night. From my father.
Short. Cold.
We need money. Urgently.
No griting. No explanation.
Just expectation. I stared at the screen. And finally typed back.
No.
There's a moment right before the truth comes out. When the room feels heavier than air. That's where we were. Everyone watching me. Waiting for me to apologize. Waiting for me to back down. They had no idea. This wasn't a defense. It was a reckoning. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the receipts. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. Not dramatically. Not angrily.
Calmly.
Because, when you're finally telling the truth, you don't need to shout. I said, I didn't want to do this. But since my loyalty is being questioned, let's talk facts. My father frowned. My mother whispered my name like a warning. I ignored it. 5 years. One question. I turned to the room. For 5 years, someone has paid the electricity, gas, rent, and medical bills in this house. I paused. Can anyone tell me who that was? Silence. Not a single person answered. When I said, "It was me," the room broke. It was me, I said. Simple.
Clear.
Final. My brother finally spoke and made it worse. Amir stood up, annoyed. She did it willingly, he said. No one forced her. I turned to him. How much did you contribute? He shrugged. That's not my job. And just like that, the golden child lost his shine. My father couldn't look at me. For the first time in my life, my father looked small, not powerful, not authoritative, just exposed. He said quietly, "We didn't ask you to do all this." I replied,
No.
"You just took it. Every month." The apology that came too late. My mother started crying. Real tears this time. "We never meant it like that," she said. "But intent doesn't erase impact. And timing matters." I said softly. "You don't get to reject me and benefit from me at the same time." I didn't ask for an apology. I set a boundary. I closed the folder, stood up, and said, "This ends today."
Gasps.
Whispers. Fear. I won't pay another bill. I won't be your secret. And I won't be shamed for surviving what you put me through. The room wasn't angry. It was ashamed. People avoided my eyes. Some nodded. Some looked guilty. Because they judged me without knowing the truth. And now they did. My final words to my parents. At the door, I turned back. Not to attack, but to finish the story. I spent my life trying to earn a place in this family, I said. But love that has conditions isn't love. I released myself from that. Then I left. What happened after? The calls stopped. The demands ended. My parents had to face reality. My brother had to step up or step away. And for the first time in my life, I felt light. I didn't lose a family, I found myself.
People ask me now.
Do you regret it?
No.
Because self-respect costs less than silence. And peace is priceless. The truth is simple. You can reject someone emotionally, but you don't get to consume their sacrifice quietly. And when the truth finally speaks, it doesn't whisper. The first night of peace, and the first storm. The night I refused to send money, I slept better than I had in years. No racing thoughts. No guilt gnawing my stomach. No imaginary arguments playing in my head. Just quiet. That quiet lasted exactly 6 hours. At 6:12 a.m., my phone rang. I didn't answer. At 6:14, another call. 6:17, a message. 6:19, another call. By 7 a.m., my phone looked like a crime scene. The panic beneath the anger. When I finally answered, my mother's voice wasn't angry. It was scared. "Why aren't you picking up?" she demanded. I said calmly. I said no. There was a pause. Then my father's voice cut in. "Do you know what you're doing?" Yes. For the first time in my life, I did. They tried fear first. The electricity will be cut. The landlord is angry. We'll be humiliated. I listened quietly, then asked one question. Why didn't Amir help? Silence. Not awkward silence. Panicked silence. The lie they always used. My mother sighed dramatically. "You know how your brother is."
Yes.
I did. He was the golden child. The one they protected from responsibility. The one they bragged about. The one who had never paid a single bill. When fear failed, they switched to guilt. "You're heartless. We raised you. This is how you repay us?" The old me would have folded. The old me would have apologized. But something inside me had changed. I said, "You raised me, yes. But you also used me." My mother gasped like I'd slapped her. "How dare you?" The threat that revealed everything. My father's voice hardened. "If you don't help us, don't call us your parents anymore." There it was. The threat they'd always relied on. And for the first time, it didn't scare me. I replied softly, "You already said I wasn't your real daughter." He hung up. The day the calls turned desperate. By day 3, the anger was gone. What replaced it was desperation. Calls from unknown numbers. Messages from relatives. Even voice notes. Crying, pleading, dramatic. My mother said, "We're suffering. Are you happy now?" I listened. And for once, I didn't rush to fix it. The family intervention. That Sunday, I got a call from my aunt. She didn't ask how I was. She said, "What kind of daughter does this?" I took a deep breath and said, "Do you know who's been paying their bills?" She laughed.
Of course she laughed.
"Your father worked his whole life," I replied. "He hasn't worked in years." Silence. The lies began to unravel. One by one, relatives started asking questions. Not accusing anymore. Just confused. Because the story they were told didn't match reality. My parents had played the role of proud, self-sufficient elders. And suddenly, the math wasn't adding up. My brother's first call in years. Amir called me. Not to check on me. Not to apologize. To complain. "Why are you creating problems?" he said. I asked, "How much have you sent them this year?" He snapped, "That's not my responsibility." I laughed. Not bitterly. Just honestly. The moment I decided to stop protecting them. That night, my mother sent a message that changed everything. "If people find out we depend on you, it will destroy our respect." I stared at that sentence for a long time. They didn't fear losing me. They feared losing image. And suddenly everything made sense. I gathered the receipts. I didn't plan revenge. I planned clarity, bank transfers, utility bills, medical payments, rent receipts, years of proof, quiet sacrifices, finally documented. I didn't post them. I didn't threaten. I simply prepared. The event that forced the truth. My parents announced a family gathering, a small dinner. Everyone was invited, including me. I knew what it was. An ambush, a public shaming, a final attempt to pressure me. So I went, walking into the lion's den. The living room was full. Relatives, neighbors, smiles that didn't reach their eyes. My mother hugged people dramatically. My father looked tired, and my brother sat comfortably, untouched by responsibility. They waited, and then my father said loudly, "Some children forget their parents once they become independent." All eyes turned to me. The question that opened the door. I stood up slowly and asked calmly, "Before we talk about gratitude, may I ask one thing?" The room went quiet. I looked directly at my father and said, "Who paid your bills for the last 5 years?" No one answered. My mother's face went pale. The moment before the explosion. My aunt laughed nervously. "Why are you asking strange questions?" I smiled, because I knew the truth was about to step into the light. And once it did, nothing would ever be the same.
If you like this story, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and press the bell icon so that every new upcoming video can reach you.